97.9, 105.5, KISS FM. Listen, it's Liz. We are thinking pink all month long with Fred F. Collis and Sons right here on KISS FM. And I am so excited. We are going to be showcasing a different breast cancer survivor each week. And in studio with me today, I am honored to have Melane Humphreys. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Yes, of course. So let's talk about your journey and kind of when everything started for you.
Sure. I was diagnosed in September of 2020, and it all started with a regular mammogram, and I had been screened regularly because of my history.
Okay.
Family history.
Yeah. So that's something that you were always kind of like aware of in the back of your head, like your family has had it, so you wanted to make sure you were checking yourself regularly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So from 35 on, I had been regularly screened.
Yeah.
And this was the first time they called me back for a second screening. And, you know, you kind of get in the pit of your stomach like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, right. You're like,
when you get that call back.
Yeah.
So I go back for the second one, and they're like, well, something doesn't quite seem right. We need to get a biopsy.
Oh.
Yeah. So when they need a biopsy, you're like, that never sounds good.
Right. So you were able, then you went, and then that's when they confirmed, correct?
Yeah. She called me on a Sunday.
Oh, see, you know what's funny is like every time I do these interviews, you guys can always say like what day it was, what day of the week it was. And it's just because it's like when you do get that news, it's just something that sticks with you.
Yeah. I remember I was asleep when I got the call because ironically, cancer makes you really tired.
Yeah.
And I remember I was napping and it was my doctor and I woke up and she's like, Melane, I want to give you the results. It's cancer. And I was like, okay, all right, thanks. And I went right back to bed.
Really? You were like, okay, all right. And for you, like when you did get that, like going forward with it, because a lot of people, when they get that call, they get that answer, like, what do you do?
Yeah. And I think it just took me a minute to process. And I remember waking up after and I was like, whew.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Where do we go from here? And about a month later, I had my double mastectomy. But I got to say, it was in the middle of COVID.
Right. Weird time to even, like, it's just weird on top of everything else. Normally, like, getting that diagnosis, but then doing it through the pandemic.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And
you know, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have my husband.
So your husband is super supportive of this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Actually, last year as well as this year, he is one of the Real Men Wear Pink ambassadors, which is so great. Last year, he raised about $5,000.
Very impressive.
Along with all of the other men that are raising money for the American Cancer Society to raise money against, in this fight against breast cancer.
Right.
So he is amongst, I want to say about 10 men that are kind of leaders in this area to join the fight against breast cancer. So if you'd like to, donate money in the cause to for all these men fighting breast cancer, my husband John Humphreys is one that is fighting the fight against breast cancer.
Yeah,
and he's sitting here, doing the shell out the money.
Yeah, right. And listen, we'll put all the links all over cmykiss.com and our Facebook post right now. So make sure if you want to support, and now is the time online CNY Kiss.
All the support he gave me because I truly went through a lot of depression.
Yeah,
honestly. I don't know if they speak about like mental health when you're going through a big trauma, but it can be difficult.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times where my husband would schedule like virtual margarita nights with one of my friends from North Carolina.
Yep.
Or a virtual wine date a Zoom wine date with my friend from New Jersey, just so I could cheer up.
Like see a familiar face, and it's weird because you're doing it through the pandemic, so that's how we were connecting, was over Zoom, and it was very weird just in general that time, but like to have somebody who wanted to help you and support you by making sure that you were going to see those faces, that's like a huge thing.
Yeah. And because you wouldn't be able to see them in person.
No. And I think you're right, the mental health part of it is such like an important part that like people don't, I guess, necessarily like to talk about, but it is something that you should talk about because there's people who relate to this idea. And even just today, as we were sitting here and we're doing our Think Pink, that was the whole conversation, and everybody was like, yes, me too. Like, that was definitely a thing. And I think that to talk about it is important.
Yeah. So, I was BRCA positive.
Mm-hmm.
I had a family history, but if I didn't catch it early.
Yeah.
One of the saving graces is that my doctors were on top of it from an early age, going with regular mammograms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So luckily I did catch it early,
Mm-hmm.
and they were able to take action early enough to be able to get it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good, outcome as a result of that.
Yeah. And I think that's the important part about finding it early and making sure to do monthly checks and to be going in to get your annual appointments done, because you just don't know what you're going to find.
Right.
And it's better to catch it as early as possible.
Yeah.
So like if you sitting here in the month of October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, like, is that your biggest advice? Like, what is your biggest advice?
For me, I couldn't feel anything on my regular checks, but for me, it was knowing your family history.
Yeah.
And if you're one that has a genetic family history, go talk to your doctor about getting those checks, because I had friends that were like, I'm overdue on my mammogram. Maybe I should get one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And there were some abnormalities.
Right.
And I think there are some that are way overdue, and there are some that should get checked.
Yeah.
So for me, I had no signs or symptoms.
And that's like the thing, like no signs or symptoms doesn't mean that, you don't know what you can find. And
Right.
It's very important to make sure that you are going in and you're getting your check. And that's why we're talking about it today, is because, talking to you guys and being able to share your stories and share your experience, is very important. Somebody else can definitely relate to it. And like you said, you had friends who went specifically after hearing, right? That
Yep.
they should go and do that. And if you're listening right now and you kind of have that idea in your head that maybe it's time, I would do it. I would make the call, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Making Strides Against Breast Cancer is going down on Sunday, October 23rd at MVCC in Utica. And if you are planning on joining us, we've got all the details at cnykiss.com. Melane, I'm so thankful that you wanted to come on and share your story.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And make sure you guys are all thinking pink all month long.